kind of had a different experience. When we were praying, before we left, we were praying about it, and we felt strongly Ireland, and so and Dublin too, yeah. And we prayed about it, and we decided to book plane tickets to fly there from Liverpool to Dublin, and we didn't pay close enough attention to the dates, and so flying there, we had the date perfectly right. Flying back, we accidentally booked March 8th instead of February 8th. So
the days of the week line up exactly the same for each month with the numbers.
So we had spent about 170 pounds on that, and it didn't work out. But anyway, get to that later. So we had it away there. And so Monday morning we left pretty early, and we flew there, and we got to customs, and it was fine. Yeah, and then maybe you can start talking now.
So literally we got out of the airport running, just about. So we got into Dublin, we prayed, what God wanted us to do. And we ended up, we felt like God wanted us to go to a church. And so we went to this church, and they was like, no, we can't help you. They've had teams before of like 12, which is a massive number for Faith Week, and they just couldn't help us at all. But they suggested Dublin Christian Mission, and so we went there, and they literally just brought us in and chucked us into a kids club. So we had no time to really think what was happening. But by the end of that kids club, I was like, yeah, just stay here with us, like in this building, for as long as you want. You can be here for the whole week, and then
with mattresses.
With mattresses, yeah. So we once all that finished, all the kids clubs, we went upstairs to the flat, and we had mattresses, we had a kitchen. They also gave us all the food we wanted, so there was like freezers full of food and
we could
like
pick what we wanted.
Shelves full of food. Yeah.
There were 3 full-sized freezers full of food. There was a wall that had shelves on it that was full of food. There was 2 freezers upstairs that were full of food. There was a refrigerator.
And all for us to just take whatever we wanted.
Full of food. So. We could have whatever we wanted.
Yep. So
Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
So that was Monday. On Tuesday morning, we woke up and ate breakfast because we could, and we were praying about what we were supposed to do that day, and we decided to do a prayer walk around Dublin to kind of get to know the city a little bit more and pray for like big places in the city. So we prayed for Dublin Castle, Christ Church, we prayed for City Hall, and we walked along the river and just prayed for businesses and stuff. And we came back to the Dublin Christian Missions and helped out with youth clubs in the afternoon, helped the kids do their homework and helped feed them, and got fed another free meal. And that evening we went to a homeless shelter, I guess, called the Lighthouse, where they brought in homeless people and fed them soup and a meal. They could have as much tea and coffee as they wanted. So our job was just to serve the people and to talk to them. Really fun, and we got more free food there, which was really exciting. We had 4 meals that day, which was cool. And so we went to sleep. On Wednesday, I woke up with a scratch on the surface of my eye, but I didn't know that at the time. So I slept all morning, and it wasn't better in the afternoon. So we went to the pharmacy. The pharmacist told me to go to the hospital, to the eye and ear emergency, and have a specialist looked at it because she couldn't give me the medicine that I needed without a prescription. So we headed up there. Dave and I went up because he's the leader. And we sat in the emergency room for 3.5 hours before we were seen at all. And then another 2 hours before we got home after that. So I spent all Wednesday in the hospital. And Rachel and Molly did some other stuff that day, so I'll let them tell you what they did.
Yeah, actually all three of us went out to do some evangelism, and we met a really great homeless person. His name was Thomas, and he told us this really sad story. And we were a little bit naive, and he told us that he was going to buy a hostel, and he didn't have enough money. And so we're like, oh yeah, here, take this. Like, we just need a receipt. So bring us a receipt tomorrow. And we trusted him. That was probably a mistake. Because
we did get to see him again.
Yeah.
We saw
Twice.
him again
Twice.
twice. We prayed with him each time, and we just sat and just showed that we cared about him, really. So although he never did pay us back.
We
just
you
got
weren't
to
expecting him to pay us back, but he never brought a receipt, so we don't think he actually went to a hostel. But yeah, so Wednesday wasn't very good because Becky was in the hospital, and we had also not felt very content at DCM for some reason. We felt like we needed to move on, and that was really our decision because it was comfortable and it was secure. But we woke up. Yeah, there's food. We woke up Thursday morning and we cleaned the place up and we completely left it. We actually had a key to the place, which is really cool, but we left the key. So then Thursday morning we went back to the church that we had prayer walked around called Christ Church, and they had a morning prayer. I actually thought it was a Catholic church, but it wasn't. It was a Church of Ireland church. Yeah. And we were the only ones that did the morning prayer. So the bishop loved us. He was super nice, and it actually cost money to go inside and look at the cathedral, and then even more money to get a tour. But we went in for free, and then he gave us this really expensive tour for free. Yeah, we got to see the crypt and mummified animals. That was pretty exciting. But we told him kind of our sob story, and he sent us to another church called Core Church that does a lot of outreach in Dublin. And so we went down there, and we met with the children's minister for most of the time, and he was awesome. He was very energetic, and he was very involved, and he ran a lot of programs. He only had things for two of us to do, so Becky and I stayed with him, and Rachel and Dave did some more evangelism with homeless people and out in the community. But we went around to different apartment flats in the area and advertised a kids club that he runs. And it was really cool because he would tell us the backstories of all the families that we were talking to, and there was a lot of poverty and drug problems. Yeah, it was amazing to see the relationship that he had with them. But we spent probably 4 hours with him, and we weren't expecting him anything in return, but maybe a place to stay or something. And so I get back to the church, and he's like, well, I can't really do anything for you, so maybe go back to Dublin Christian Mission or find a hostel. And so we were kind of angry. But he told us about a coffee morning on Friday morning, and he was really nice to us. So we left there frustrated, and we went back to Christ Church because they did a choral thing, and it felt secure and it was warm. The only reason why we went.
And we felt that we should. We felt that God said we should go back there.
So there, I think we started freaking out a little bit more that we didn't have a place to stay. And after that got over, we waited for a long time because we felt like we should. We thought something extraordinary was going to happen. But 3.5 hours later, it was 10:30 at night, we still didn't have a place to stay. And Dublin is beautiful, but it's not super safe, and at night it's kind of scary. And so, super frustrated, we went to McDonald's. That's what you do, stress eat.
And we hadn't had dinner that night, so it seemed like a really good idea.
But while we were eating and talking, I looked in the booth across from us, and there was a couple, and the guy had a binder. He was holding a binder and it had a cross on the front. And I was like, oh, he's a Christian. He has to let us stay with him. Divorce, you know. But I didn't like. How do I get from you're a stranger and I don't know you to let me stay on your floor? So we didn't really do anything about it. But Rachel was super smooth. And, she leaned over and she asked them if they were from Dublin and if there was any free places to stay. And we're like, no, but we can look up some hostels for you. And so they got out their phones and they were looking up hostels. And they're like, well, this one's €8. And we're like, we can't afford that. This one's €10. We definitely can't afford that. And they're like, you know what, just stay on our floor. And we're like, yes, I was expecting it.
I was in the loo and was not expecting it.
So yeah, we all piled in their car, and they took the leap of faith that we weren't going to kill them, and we took the leap of faith that they weren't going to kill us. And they brought us back to their home, which was south of town, and we'd actually prayed before we left that we would go south, so that was weird and cool. Yeah, and we got there, and they had a couple of children that were our age in the pool. And we all had, well, the girls had beds and Dave had a couch, but it was still really nice.
Yeah, the house was super nice, and they gave us food and hot drinks when we arrived, and it just took care of us. And then Becky had a hospital appointment the next day, but it was on the other side of town, and they lived about 40 minutes outside of town. So we were like, how on earth are we going to get there, and what bus would we have to get, how early would we be able to get up and things. And then the man just said, oh, I'll drive you there in the morning. We're like, what? Okay. So we left early Friday morning. He drove us straight to the hospital. We got there in good time. And then we had to wait like an hour, 2 hours or something, till Becky was seen. So whilst Becky was waiting, me and Molly decided to walk back over to the core church for the coffee morning. So we walked over there, and then Dave and Becky joined us later on. And so whilst we were there were lots of people visiting, and so we sat on the table, we got chatting to some really interesting people, all kinds of people actually, and we had some great conversations with them. Now towards the end of the morning, some people from the church came over to the table and we were just chatting to them, and I got talking to this one lady called Joyce, and I told her what we were doing, and we got onto the topic of faith and how God really answers our prayers, and how sometimes we just need to take that step forward, and once we've taken that step forward, then we can really see God's power and how God works in our situations and things. So we were talking about that for quite a while, and I just felt so encouraged by listening to her. And then at the end of the conversation, just as she was leaving, she handed me a €50 note. I was like, what? At this point, we didn't have enough money to get home. We were getting quite worried about how on earth we would get home. We basically, our plan was we'd just get the ferry to Holyhead, and then from there we would find a way, hitchhike or whatever. So now we had the €50, and also Becky got talking to this other guy who gave her €10, so that now doubled the amount of money we had. So we were quite encouraged by that, and that was a really good morning. We just felt encouraged walking away from there. So then we headed into town after just worship, and we tried to find a way of booking ferry tickets and finding out the cheapest option. We managed to find a really good deal. I don't know how we found this, but basically we got the ferry from Dublin to Holyhead and then a train straight direct to Wrexham, and it cost like nothing. It was
€39 per person.
How many?
Yeah.
€39 per person.
Wow.
So it ended up being €4 for the train each from Holyhead to Wrexham.
Wow.
I don't understand
That's
how that
crazy.
works, but that's what we did. We had just about the right amount of money for that. The couple that we stayed with on Thursday night said that we could go back there on Friday night. And so we went back to their house. They weren't even there. It was just their two daughters were there. And so we got back. They had food for us, so we had pizza, and we just chilled at their house all evening. And then we were trying to sort out how we would get to the port for 7:30 in the morning, and we were working out that with all the buses, because they lived on the other side of town, with the buses into town and then to the ferry port, we would have to leave the house at like 5 o'clock or 5:15 or something. We were like, that's way too early, but that's what we were going to do, because how else are we going to get there? So then the parents phoned the house later that evening just to say how we were doing and how we were planning on getting home, and we said we were taking the ferry, and then they just gave us €20 to get the taxi straight to the ferry port. So that meant that we didn't have to leave the house until 7:15, which was an added bonus. We got the taxi straight to the ferry port, got on the ferry. It was the roughest crossing I've ever been. Waves came straight over the top of the ferry. The ferry was rocking side to side.
Plates went smashing on the floor.
At one point, all the plates got smashed, and so it was a longer journey, but it was straightforward. I think that's one of the things I'm most thankful for, is that the journey to Dublin, straightforward, simple, easy, and the journey back was exactly the same. We got taxi, ferry, train. We got back safely, and we had enough money in the end to get back. So yeah, God was very good. He answered all our prayers. Yeah.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah.